In the context of the horrors of war, my story may not resonate with the hearts of Ukrainians. It might seem out of place. That's why, for Ukraine's Independence Day, I want to touch the hearts of others around the world. Those who've heard of this remarkable country but haven't yet grasped how truly inspiring and cool it is. I was born and raised in Russia's borderlands, in the city of Kursk, a city just north of Ukraine's border. Our local dialect had features similar to Ukrainian. Almost every second person had relatives from Ukraine or traces of Ukrainian identity. Calling yourself a descendant of the Cossacks was still considered horrible. But of course, we had a post-Soviet past and a Russian present. In my case, that was amplified by the smallness and conservatism of the town. Ukrainian culture wasn't on the national agenda. No language, no presence, only critical TV segments. Ukraine steals gas, Ukraine has a ridiculous president, Crimea and Donbass have split off from Ukraine. I was a child and for a while I let it all pass me by. Around age 10, I began learning Polish on my own. I liked how it was both similar and different from Russian. At first, it felt playful, but that playfulness faded as I consumed more content on Polish. Polish was considered relatively prestigious by my mom. Poland, you see, was Europe. Poland had wealth even during Soviet times, European goods, a bit more freedom. People went there to study, but those funny Polish words, they often were the same roots as some Ukrainian funny words. I started digging deeper, and the answer changed my life. It turned out that borscht, vyshyvanka, vareniki, that's primarily Ukraine, and they're just the tip of a rich culinary iceberg. Those funny words belong to my region too, because damn it, a third of it was founded by ethnic Ukrainians. They spoke those words, echoed history, and wanted to be Ukrainian because they knew something, damn it, like the fact that being Ukrainian means choosing democracy with a history of a freedom-loving state, the Hetmanate, unjustly conquered by Muscovites. It means your life is steeped in literature that celebrates native land and the thirst for life, the ability to stay resilient and optimistic in the hardest times, to laugh at yourself and still carry dignity. It means you have a distant language, defended by your ancestors, carried across the world, and preserved as truly unique, different from all other Slavic languages, beloved and native to millions. It means you have a history of struggle, marked by bans and bloodshed, and even in peacetime, well, relatively peaceful times, there is still room for acts of courage. My obsession began. I became a Ukrainian spy in my own hometown.
Давай. Через не можу. Через ще трохи. До кінця. І ти будеш чемпіоном. Вставай. Через ще трохи. До кінця.
Waking up at 3:45 a.m. before mom and granny, crunching abdominals, stretching, then reading Ukrainian grammar. Walking through Kursk, muttering street names in Ukrainian under my breath. Reading shampoo labels aloud at the supermarket, because back then Russian products still had Ukrainian translations. Learning Ukrainian pronunciation, I literally learned to talk slowly and understandable. I had big problems with mumbling, so people never heard me. Ukrainian, with his more strict articulation manner, taught me to talk freely and feel that I could be heard. I became a Ukrainian culture junkie. Ukraine became my vibe, my mood, my core. I even used to call myself a Ukrainian nationalist. I knew that my Ukrainian granddad had surname Kazakh. I took this part as my right to call myself Ukrainian a little bit, developing this context. Reading history articles, I realized that there is an approximate border of Ukrainian Cossacks' territories on Kursk Oblast. Moreover, kinda most of neighboring Belgrade is made of Ukrainian ancestors. I read a lot of Starodubshchina, Kurshchina, Slobozhanshchina and Ukrainian clans. I was very fond of Tigrilovy's poems of Bahrani about Ukrainians living on the far east of Russia. Back in school, I once tried to recite Franco's poem about the stone cutters in Ukrainian.
Незмірна і пуста, і дика площина. І я, прикований ланцем залізним, стою під височенною гранітною скалою, а поряд тисячі таких самих.
When they sent me to a patriotic poetry contest, they ended up pulling me out of the competition, very politely though. Making my school 9th grade exams, I had a task to write a review for some literature sign, and I chose Микола Хвильовий, me, romantic. I got an excellent grade. Check out what is that about. I had a few Ukrainian friends to chat with. My first internet love being Ukrainian guy from Kharkiv, though generally, talking to Ukrainians online was a bit tricky. Those with more strong identity were kinda, we have a war ongoing, bro. And Ukrainians from mixed with Russian regions were kinda, let's talk Russian, bear. I feel weird if I will mistake in my speech. However, I was learning everything new, pacing it through the lens of Ukrainian authors. Tried to find friends on Ukraine and Ukrainian friends in Russia, dreaming about to make up some Ukrainian cultural and maybe even political moves, standing out underground deep of Ukrainian vibe on ethnic Ukrainian territories. On 2021, my ex-boyfriend asked me why couldn't I try to pass any university scholar program from Kyiv or Chernivtsi or something like that. That's when I decided to apply for a certificate of a foreign Ukrainian. It was issued to people who could prove not only direct family connection to Ukraine, but also a cultural one. This certificate gave certain advantages for entering universities, and it also increased the chances I'd even be allowed into Ukraine at all. I was after all a citizen of an aggressor state and a man. I needed documents and 3 layers of petition from Ukrainian citizens. I've got all of that and sent it to Ukraine Foreign Affairs Ministry. I supposed that even though I will be rejected after all, I could go to Ukraine by my own after finish my studies by plane through Belarus. And then at least I will visit Kyiv. I will speak in Ukrainian with Ukrainians in Ukraine, and maybe I will find out how to set off my new career or university journey. Before the big war, I received an email where I was told that they decided to reject my application for the certificate, citing an article which told that I could be a national security threat. Firstly, I was really sad back then. I got offended and sent a long personal message on Facebook to a woman who had signed that letter. But the next day, I deleted it because I woke up to the roar of airplanes, that piercing metallic roar that set off all the car alarms nearby, making them wail in unison. It was the sound of planes hitting from the nearby airfield to destroy Ukrainian cities. Well, growing up as a teenager in Russia, I always called myself Ukrainian. Before the full-scale war began, I even considered myself a Ukrainian nationalist. All my friends knew this, and once I was even criticized at some party for seriously been explaining why the Russian state's actions were condemnable. After the war started, I stopped talking about my national or political identity altogether. For a while, I still stayed in Russia, and it felt like everything had lost its meaning. Yet, some things inside me still made sense. The language I had already been thinking in exclusively for several years, the one I used to watch and read things, to write personal journals. Ukrainian was the language I spoke with my friend, my cat Alvis. Even though I no longer saw ways to express myself as a Ukrainian in Russia or anywhere else, I knew I had already received something precious from the spirit of that people, in their freedom, critical thinking, individualism, and the belief in what is called progressive and diverse. Could I have ever left the border town of Kursk, where things now feel both frightening and shameful without that. And how would I have lived without dreaming of a cool embroidered shirt, Vyshivanka? Without reading poems by Zhedan and Lina Kostenko, without resonating with the voice of a true self-made man of the 21st century Zelensky, and without being outraged when someone in my new homeland calls Ukrainian vareniki pasta russa. Still, no matter how much I want to keep this cheerful tone, Ukrainians in Ukraine and abroad are going through hard times. Ukraine needs our support. Glory to Ukraine, and a deep bow to Ukrainians who made up and are preserving now the Ukraine that lives in our arts and our hearts worldwide.